talk about the jaw thing because I feel like Adam Silver really played it up, and then it wasn't that big of a
I know.
suspension.
He was like, this
Everyone was like, "Oh,
guy, you're
30s,"
never going to
and
see him
then
again. Yeah,
yeah,
he's fucking out.
yeah, like you thought he was gonna be in some kind of like jail under the Grizzlies arena,
Right.
and it's like, no, 25 games, like,
Yeah.
and they're still gonna make the playoffs. Like they're good enough without him.
McMahon, I remember one time, possibly unprompted, he told Zach Lowe on his podcast that before he takes a shower, he does 60 push-ups. So now I never shower without thinking of Tim McMahon. I'm like, I'm getting naked, I'm going in the shower, and I go, what would fucking Tim McMahon do? I don't know. He's so busy, you would think, and he is banging out 60 push-ups. It's wild. I'm really out on the Harden thing. To me, it's going to be hard to get up for the season, but I will because I'm a moron. I feel like we know how it ends. Like, if you just hand him the ball in high leverage games, we know what happened. Like, there's so much evidence at this point.
Drew, I don't know if you can find this. There was the one report about how like the Sixers before Game 7 just knew like, oh, this isn't going to be hard.
Spike
Yeah,
said
it was
that.
Spike.
Spike said that.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
said
I was communicated a story from a source that I trust. All I can tell you is that players before Game 7 who were very familiar with James Harden were able to see that he was going to have a game like that and were concerned. Like other players on the team knew that he was basically out that game.
7.
we could start with Harden because we kind of just were talking about it. Harden returning to the Sixers on a team-friendly deal remains the focus of Philadelphia's offseason, and it looks increasingly likely that they might be able to make that happen.
He just seems like he truly, on a basic level, does not care. I also don't think that he cares about this part of his legacy, which honestly, as a person, good for him. But I don't think he's like dead set to prove something. I just don't think that that's in him. Also, very much think he'll be back at this point, as the reporting has totally shifted.
We say like the reporting has shifted, but it's like it almost feels like there's like one or two reports and then everybody else reports the same shit and piles on. This is not to rehash the MVP debate because Jokic just, like I said, is better, but like just how quickly like one person saying something can sway the whole debate depending on how influential they are in the NBA media. And that probably goes both ways, right? Like Nuggets people could say the same thing about Embiid winning this year. It just kind of feels like, you know, people talk about the NFL like a copycat league. I feel like NBA media is a copycat league. There's very little original out there. It's people regurgitating the same stuff. If somebody has a new idea, all of a sudden it becomes mainstream and almost goes too far, right? Coverage of the NBA is just so bad. And it's the same thing with this Harden deal where it's like one person said, you know, Woj says he's going to Houston, and all the other like reporters are like kind of like being fed the same stuff or like taking what he says as fact. And then we get to and no one kind of questions the logistics of it, even though all of the fans are, right? Like all of the fans are like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why is Houston going to overpay for him? They're not going to be able to get a second star. They don't have the assets for it to like really make that team competitive. They should be building around these young guys. It doesn't make sense. We've been saying that all year. And that's not even like begging for Harden to come back. We just didn't really get the Houston thing. Like it would make more sense if he wanted to go somewhere else. And so, like, the fact that nobody in NBA
Phoenix
media
for like a split second, and then obviously they just did the Beal trade.
Right.
But like but nobody in NBA media was like doing the digging of like, does this work? Are there like, no one takes the next step to say what is the interest in Houston's assets? No one takes the next step to say like, can they get that second guy to entice Harden to come? Do they want to pay Harden that max? Right? It's just like, oh yeah, Harden wants to go to Houston. Harden's probably, and that just lingers there. And nobody does anything with it because the media is awful. The NBA media has to be the worst media of any major sports coverage. It is horrific. And I don't mean that against like our friends who are like moving their way up in NBA media and getting into the game. I mean the mainstream people at ESPN, at The Ringer, at The Athletic. Well, The Athletic just fired everybody. But I don't mean The Athletic Philly, like the Athletic, like the main reporters. Like, there's just no real digging of anything. It's like something goes out and then it's like, oh, guess this is that for the year, and it's just kind of riffing off of that.
Gonzaga's Drew Timme worked out for the Lakers today and is grateful he's becoming a pro at the same time Nikola Jokic is showing what he can do in the NBA. I owe him a lot. I think he's making me a little more appealing than I was probably perceived before.
And I actually like enjoyed like watching him play in college. Like he was like a fun player in college. But like Nikola Jokic has won 2 MVPs, an NBA championship, and a Finals MVP. And he's what, like 27? Like, what is this dude talking about? Like, you guys aren't similar at all. But that's what makes it great. Is if he were a great player, this wouldn't be funny. It wouldn't be interesting at all. But that's what makes it so great. Is he thinks that all that was holding him back before was that there wasn't a good enough gigantic white guy. And now that there is, teams are gonna like him.
He's going to these draft meetings and like, huh? Look at that guy. He's white.
He's
Yeah.
going to be the.
We're gonna watch him play and have no similarities to Jokic in their game whatsoever.
May 30th, 2023. Josh Hart with blessing the world.
Do we think this is that weird?
Are you a sick bastard?
Well, I mean, listen, I don't know anybody who's breastfeeding at the moment. I just feel like you could try it. Like you could I'm not saying you're like guzzling it, but like you wouldn't take a sip and see what it tastes like out of curiosity.
I don't even eat mushrooms. I would not.
I don't eat mushrooms either. I'd be more likely to do that. But you know,
Okay.
I've tried mushrooms. That's how I know I don't like them.
Look at Dan Orlovsky in the reply saying 100%. Nick Nurse, who we might as well have hired as coach when we talked about his NN hats.
Yeah.
That
Nick
went
Nurse
viral.
seems really unlikable, but is probably a good coach. That's all I got.
I don't know that he's unlikable. For so many people, he's imminently likable because he's not Doc Rivers. He has a little country twang in his voice. He said, I don't vibrate on the frequency of the past, which I don't fully understand. And I think he's going to be a good coach, and I think it might not matter. So that's really how I feel about him. Before we end, we do have to say a congratulations. It's been a while. It's been a little bit now, but to Emily and Jordy, who had their kid, Marin, who we've not yet met, haven't had on the pod or whatever this is, but Emily of the Gastroenteritis Blues. So congratulations to them.